The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Easy Gourmet. I'm your host Vinnie Ferlisi, and today before we get started I just want to say that I have a special guest in my kitchen today, Mr. Ed Walker. How you doing, Ed? Thank you for being here.
Wonderful. I can't wait. I can't wait. With all my years on what's on the menu, I couldn't be any happier to be right here today.
But today we got two recipes today. We're going to make a Bolognese sauce with tomatoes from the San Marzano region of Italy, and we're going to make some homemade pasta. So today, why don't we, the first thing that we want to do today is to get our pan good and hot. So while we do that,
When you say get the pan good and hot, you want to start the smoke on the oil?
yeah, I want the pan to be hot first before I add the oil. That way the food won't stick. If you put the room temperature oil into a cold pan, there is a tendency to stick, and this is not a non-stick pan. So what we have is I have a mixture of, I got about 1.25 pounds here of ground beef and ground pork. You need with this recipe, you need about 1.25 pounds, but you can use any mixture you want. You can use all beef, you can use all pork, you can use turkey. Someone asked me about using some chicken. Chicken, I think, would be a little dry for this recipe. So just kind of get that going. Let's see how we're doing here. You want about 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil. And while that's going, maybe I'll cut up an onion. 1 onion.
Pretty much everybody cuts the onion the same way, basically.
You want
both ends.
You want to take both ends off, and then when you start cutting it, you want to cut it on the flat. You don't want to have it rolling around, although this is kind of a flat onion. But have something flat so that way it's a little safer. And you make a few slits. This rough chop. You don't have to be really exact, 'cause it's going to cook down. Make sure you always have a sharp knife. They usually have sous chefs to do this, Ed, but I'm doing the chief. I don't know, how are you with a knife? And the garlic, just take a whole head of garlic. We're only going to use about 3 cloves. Press down on it to loosen them all up. Take 2 or 3 heads. 2 or 3 cloves, I mean. Oops, that one got away from me. And just bang them slightly with your knife with the sharp part away from you.
You trim the garlic?
I'm just going to give it a rough chop. Sometimes if your garlic's been sitting around the house a while, there's a little green part that just kind of really strengthens it. You can always take that out. It kind of, what it does is it kind of takes the harshness out of the clove. So you can always do that. This I just picked up the other day, so it looks pretty good. There's a little woody piece on this. You probably just want to take that off also. You can cut it off or snap that off with your fingers. And just kind of, just sliver that. Don't like mince it into oblivion, because what'll happen is your pan's going to be really hot and the garlic will have a tendency to burn. So you just want to just kind of go like a 1/16 of an inch, and you should be fine. You know, people start, you know, chopping it too fine, or use finely, buy garlic that's already finely chopped and put it into a hot pan. It can, like I say, it can have a tendency to burn. So now you can see our oil is smoking slightly, so we want to put our meat in. Kind of break that up with your spatula or spoon, whatever you're using. This is a little bit too high. And you just want to break that up. You don't really want any big pieces. Again, I have about 1.25 pounds here of ground beef and ground pork mix, but you can use all pork, all beef, or again, turkey, whatever suits your fancy. Okay, while that's cooking.
So these recipes come from the old country, so whatever was in the ice,
This is,
we use it up.
yeah, this actually Bolognese sauce is my take on it. The Easy Gourmet's take. There are some other recipes that incorporate carrots and celery into it, but mine only has the ground meat and the tomatoes. So what I like to use for this recipe, because I like to use the San Marzano tomato, which are registered tomatoes that are grown only in the San Marzano region of Italy, which is near Naples, and a lot of the earth in that part of that Europe is from the volcanoes. This is grown in the volcanic ash. These tomatoes, they're sort of shaped like a thumb shaped, little different than a plum tomato. And they're very sweet, and that's why I like to use it for this recipe. And they don't require cooking like all afternoon, like some sauces or some, as people call them, gravies. Sunday gravy cooks all day. These tomatoes don't need that. They are a little more expensive than regular tomatoes, but it's worth it for this recipe. And they're whole tomatoes, so all I do is I just kind of put them in a bowl and I crush them. Just a rough crush. That's ready to go. Just put that off to the side. I'm also going to use 1 can of tomato paste also in this recipe. So I want the meat browned. I think it gets just a little more. Once I get the meat browned, what I want to do is I want to add the onions and the garlic, and I want to cook those till they're translucent. And then I'm going to add a little salt to translucent. You like that?
It's a little different from France.
Translucent is sort of, you can see.
They get clear.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Translucent means. So. Right now I'm going to add about a tablespoon of salt. Kosher salt, that's all I use in my kitchen.
For any particular reason?
I think it tastes better.
Good.
I've said a couple of times in some of the previous shows, if you want to try canister salt, kosher salt, and a couple of other salts, try them all, you know, at the same time. You see what I'm talking about. And you don't need as much, which is kind of nice. You'll actually use a little bit less to get that same salty flavor. Plus, I think it brings the flavor of the food, it brings the flavor out, not just seasons it, it actually brings the flavor of the food out. So now we can add our garlic and onions. And I'm going to get that a little, till those, like I said, till they're translucent.
Beginning to smell.
What I like about using a pan like this is more of the surface of the pan is touching the heat. If you use more of a narrow pan, yeah, so I like this where it's spread out. And constantly stir to make sure things don't stick and make sure that everything is cooking evenly.
that meat pretty lean, pork?
Yeah, this is, I have 85%, this is not sausage meat, it's ground pork. Sausage meat, there's a lot of fat, which sausage meat is mostly ground pork, but this is more of the loin pork. So, but like I say, if you opt to use that, you can use Italian sausages, you can use the hot sausage or the sweet sausage, just cut the casing off. You can use all that also in these recipes. But like I say, for this particular batch, I think £1.25 pounds to £1.5 pounds, you don't want to go over that because you'll overwhelm the amount of tomatoes that you're using. Just want to let that go just a little bit more.
What would you consider would you consider this a quick meal, because you could make this, but it's not a homemade pasta, you know?
Yeah, except for the home, I guess you could use dried pasta, but you'd have to kind of let this cook down for half hour or so, 45 minutes, till it's ready. You could do something, if you had just dried, you didn't want to make the homemade pasta. Well, just another couple of minutes here. Why don't we take a break and we'll be right back.
The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.
Like I said previous, I like to use the San Marzano tomatoes. This company, Cento, puts them out. I think Pastine puts them out, and a couple of other companies. And they're registered from Naples, the San Marzano region. And like I said before, they're very, very sweet, and I like to use these because I think they really, really give a nice presence to this dish. This dish also needs a can of tomato paste. I'm going to cheat a little bit, but although I think this is one of the better tomato pastes, I've made this recipe, but many different ones, even ones imported from Italy, but I think Hunt's, believe it or not, is probably one of the best pastes for this dish. So we're going to use a little bit of tomato paste. Actually, we're going to use the whole can. And what I want to do is I want the paste to cook. You got to remember, this is concentrated raw tomatoes. We don't want to put it directly into any dish because it's going to give you that raw, kind of a raw tomato taste. I don't care how much you boil it down. This needs to be, I feel it needs to be cooked, and that's what this recipe calls for. So we're going to just turn this up just a little. I think a lot of people that make batches of sauce sometimes think they're going to put paste in, it's going to thicken their sauce, but the thing is, you get that raw kind of tomatoey thing going on. This is where you cook this down, and it takes that bite out of it, that kind of out of the can bite.
It took a long time for somebody to make tomato paste in
a tube?
Tube.
Yeah.
Because you used to use a half a can, and then you add a half a can in the refrigerator for 4 years.
The only thing with the tube is you could probably use one of those for one recipe. I don't think there's as much in the tube as there is in one little can. Now that we got that cooked, we just want to blast this with about a half a cup or a third of a cup of vermouth or white wine, whatever you have open, but something on the white side. If you use red, it's a little too heavy. And there's some burned bits on the bottom. Those are all going to loosen up. So we do just a little bit more. If you can get closer in the camera, you can see at the bottom there's like little burned bits of meat and tomato there, and that's all the added flavor. And the vermouth will pick all that up. If you don't want to use alcohol, it's all going to be burned off. If you don't want to use alcohol in your recipe, you can always use some chicken stock. But this is all the alcohol residue will be gone. Okay, we can add our tomatoes now. We have about 35 ounces, 35 ounces of San Marzano tomatoes.
many people you gonna feed with this recipe?
This recipe is probably good, I'd say for a big group.
Big group.
Yeah, you got probably enough here for 6 to 8 people.
400 people.
How many?
4.
We're going to use a little bit of fresh basil. And what I've done here is I buy the basil in a bag. I don't know if you've seen this in the supermarket. Comes in a bag, there's an elastic at the bottom. I bring it home, I cut the bottoms off, I leave it in water. Believe it or not, this one's 2 weeks old and it still looks fresh.
Really? That's a good
Yeah.
idea. That's nice.
That's the way to, this time of year, in the winter time, it's hard to kind of, save things, and that's, as long as you take them out from the bottom, you don't open the bag. Throw a little bit of basil in. We're going to do basil twice, once here at the beginning here, and then once at the end when it's almost finished. And a little bit of black pepper, which we haven't added yet. This is all by eye, you know, put as much as you want.
All experience.
I guess so, but you can also put some flecks of red pepper flakes if you'd like that in your sauce. So once we get this going, I'm just going to lower the heat, put the cover on, and let it simmer. And I think it's ready for the cover. And we'll just lower that. Okay.
All right.
Now we're going to get into the handmade pasta or homemade pasta. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a food processor method. I know sometimes you watch these shows and they build up a pile of flour and they put 1 egg in, and we'd be here till tomorrow morning. And I actually have a regular job besides doing this, Ed. So we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to use a food processor. But what is nice about using a food processor is that the blade incorporates everything very even. So yes. So the recipe I have for this, which is my own recipe, I call it the 4-3-2-1. It's 4 eggs, 3 cups of flour, or a combination of 2 flour and 1 cup of semolina, which gives it a little more durability to it. 2 teaspoons of oil and 1 tablespoon of salt. So
You're
it's,
saying the semolina toughens it up.
yeah, it gives you a little more bite. You don't have to use it, but I like to use it because, and I don't like to go half and half. I just like that little bit of 1 cup of semolina, or even a half a cup, give or take, just to give it a little more bite, or it gives it that al dente factor.
So what was that? Give me that 4-3-2-1.
4 eggs.
4 eggs.
3 cups of flour, or a combination of 2-1, or 1 of semolina, 2 teaspoons of oil, and 1 tablespoon of salt.
Okay.
So what I do first is I like to bang the eggs on the flat instead of banging them on a corner, because that way the shell doesn't go inside the egg. Because you don't know where these eggs, well, you kind of know where the eggs have been, but you don't really want to know where they've been. So I always break them on the flat.
That's another thing you should experience too, because I smash them all up.
Yeah, if you hit them on the corner, like you might have a tendency to hit them on the corner here and it'll fall. So we want 2 teaspoons of oil. I like to measure this. Normally, if you've seen in my past shows, I don't measure too many things, but I like to measure the oil because if too much oil gets into this, the dough gets kind of soft. I don't really like it, and it's hard to roll out. And we need a tablespoon of salt. And I just mix these together. And you can add your flour through the top, or through one of these if you happen to have one. You don't really need it, but I have it, so I'm going to use it. Okay, so I got 2. We're going to incorporate one at a time. This is just regular all-purpose white flour.
pasta, you're gonna make with that much flour?
You get about, this is probably enough for 4 to 6 people. Have this semolina flour, which is a Durham wheat, has a little bit of a yellow, almost looks like cornmeal consistency. I just got this at the regular supermarket. A company called Red Mill, Bob's Red Mill. They make about 1,000 different products from, for every different kind of milled wheat and flour and anything that's grain that you can think of, they have. Of course, you can get it at a specialty store also. So you want about a cup of this, because you want 3 cups of flour. Oops. If it looks a little bit dry, you can add a little bit of water, but now when I take it out, you see it sticks together very nicely. You're gonna need plenty of flour on the side to prevent sticking to all the countertop and everything like that. Okay, so we have that mixed, and the food processor puts a lot of really activates the gluten and all this, so you have to let it rest after you kind of turn it out in some flour. So you just need a little bit of flour here.
Is that basically the consistency you're looking for?
Yes, yeah. And right now it's a little difficult to work with because as it spins around in the bowl, it builds up a lot of heat, and the heat activates the gluten in the flour. So you kind of have to let it, after you kind of mix it up, just mix it up a little more by hand here. You kind of have to let it rest a little before it's really workable. But I have one already made, which we're going to cut and roll out. That's all you want to do. And that's pretty much it. You wrap it up with a piece of cellophane and just let that rest. Once that rests, this is how you want it rolled out into a tube. Make sure it's well floured. And this is where
Can you kind of bang that on the thing just so we can see how hard it is or soft it is?
yeah, it's kind of like Play-Doh. That's pretty much what it's like. It's kind of like maybe a little more less give to it than Play-Doh, but it's on a Play-Doh consistency. So what you want to do is you want to just get a little piece. And once that's rolled out, you want a little flour on it so it doesn't dry too quickly. I'll just show you the consistency at between one setting and another. You can see that there is the unfinished, and that's but you can actually go lighter than that, but then it's like too light. I like to use it at that setting. And we only got a couple more left, so we'll always give it the last spin on the last setting. And then we just let them dry out for a couple of minutes before we cut them. I have to get my rolling pan of water together, and we'll check our sauce, see how that's doing. Okay. Our sauce looks like it's coming together beautifully. What we're going to do is we're just going to take some of this sauce, and we're going to do the classic add the heavy cream to it. So this recipe isn't necessarily, if you can leave the cream out, but the real Bolognese sauce does have cream, so we're going to separate some of this into another pan and add cream and heat those together. That'll give it a little more of a pale color red. This is coming along great. It's probably pretty close to being finished. So we want our water here is almost ready. Again, I like kosher salt. Always salt your water, about a tablespoon. Of course, it flavors the pasta and it stops the water from boiling over.
There you go.
So, somewhat.
Done.
Okay, I think these are probably dry enough. You only want to dry them off just for a couple of minutes. If you want to dry them and cut them, put them in a plastic bag, you don't want to dry them out completely. I like to cook it when it's somewhat still fresh. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put these through the fettuccine setting, which I have to reset this machine. And we don't want them, we only want them about a foot or so we can just cut this one in half. And then we can cut those. I'm going to lay them on this platter with a little bit of cornmeal so they don't stick. Let's see. And just throw a little cornmeal on so it doesn't stick to itself. Not a lot, just a little bit. If you prefer a wider noodle, you could cut them lay them down on a cloth and cut them with a pizza cutter. If you wanted a wider noodle like a pappardelle, you could just cut them with a pizza cutter like that. You could have wide noodles like that. You can do whatever you want. You can get creative with this recipe, but we're just going to do regular old fettuccine today. And the last one. And that is it. Whew. I don't know about you, Ed, but that was driving me crazy.
Worth it.
I know this is supposed to be the easy gourmet, but that was something.
All right, though.
So this looks good. Looks very good.
Perfect.
Looks perfect. So what we're going to do is see how the sauce is doing, which is fine. What we're going to do is I'm just going to remove some of the sauce and put it into a separate pan. And that way, I'll be able to show you all you want to do is maybe just kind of stir it around. I'm just going to, before I do this though, I'm just going to add a little more basil, a little more chopped basil. And just throw this in, just do it, just rough with your hands. Because at the end of the recipe, the basil will give out the most flavor because we're not going to be cooking it as long. And to kind of give it that more of a fresh taste. Where the basil we put in at the beginning will kind of have mellowed out at this point. Okay. Oops. Okay, just going to put the cover back on this.
What was the reason you were taking that much sauce off?
Because I'm going to put some cream in it, and I don't want to put the cream into the whole batch. Yeah, actually, you can't. It's best for this recipe to add the cream as needed, because if you want to save the sauce, it's tough to save with the cream. The cream will separate in the refrigerator. So I'm just gonna use about a third of a cup, give or take. Between a third and just heavy cream, any old heavy cream. You can use half and half, and you can use light cream, but don't use milk, because it will separate. And you kind of want to bring that to a simmer also. Our water is ready. And we can put our pasta in. Just be gentle. Remember, it's not like the hard, dried pasta.
How long, Vinnie?
It's going to be about, we want it to come back to a boil. It's going to be about 3 or 4 minutes. All right, it's been about four minutes or so. Let's give our pasta a taste. And let's not throw it against the wall or anything like that. The best way to do it is to taste. It's a little al dente and it's ready to go. Ed, you have your pasta al dente, don't you? A little bit to the bite?
I love it like that.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'll just strain it here.
Looking good, looking good.
I think we did all right, Ed. Just put our sauce on top. I'll save a little bit of sauce on the slide. Oh, just bear with me for 1 minute. I'm going to let you do your own cheese, Ed, because I don't usually, I know some of the TV chefs put cheese on the whole platter before they serve it, but I don't like to do that because not everybody likes a lot of cheese.
I'm putting the microphone down.
Let's- It seems really hot, is it?
You gotta wait for that for a minute. I'm hot.
I'm going to give it a shot, so
Go ahead.
let's see how we did. Wow. Not because the Easy Gourmet made it, but it is really good. So just to recap, how was it, Ed? Just to recap, again, the recipe is 4-3-2-1, 4 eggs, 3 cups of flour, or a combination of 2 flour and 1 semolina, 2 teaspoons of oil and 1 tablespoon of salt. Mix that either by hand or a food processor till thoroughly mixed, and then roll it out with your machine or by crank or even a rolling pin, however you want to do it, and then cut them to any desired width. As far as the sauce, again, it's a 35-ounce can of San Marzano tomatoes, 1 can of paste. As I said, I prefer Hunt's, but you use whatever you like. Lots of fresh basil, fresh herbs, and a little bit of cream to finish it off. So I think that's our show.
I think it's just,
Yes.
you gotta crush the tomatoes just a little bit.
Yeah, you have to.
Just have
Those
to
tomatoes that I bought were whole tomatoes. I just crushed them slightly. They're going to break apart once they cook, but you want to give it a start by crushing them in a bowl.
That's about the only thing you have to do.
Pretty much, yeah. If you want to use dried pasta for this recipe, it's fine. And I think the cream kind of adds a nice little richness to it also. As we always say, this show wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the support from the Holiday Inn Select and the scoreboard here in Woburn. And again, if you have any questions about the show or anything at all, any comments, you can send us an email at easygourmet@gmail.com. So I guess that's it for today, Ed. Ed looks like he's busy over there. So that's it today on the Pasta Bolognese show. So again, this is Vinnie Ferlisi. This is Ed Walker. Happy cooking.
The Easy Gourmet is sponsored by The Scoreboard Sports Bar and Grill. Come visit us at 15 Middlesex Canal Park in Woburn, 781-897-4000.